To better understand who we are and where we're going, we must first understand where we came from. These words ring true, be they in our world or one of fiction. Once again, we're about our business of providing you, the viewer, with a richer experience by exploring the things that make the PSO2 universe what it is. My name's Zio, and I'll be your lore keeper. We study history to gain a better grasp of who we are by examining how we got there. The countless tales of triumph and tragedy, not just on a societal macro level, but on a personal micro level. Lore is one of the few pieces of evergreen content in these types of games. An overarching theme of the PSO2 saga is that our actions, as well as our inactions, can have long-lasting implications. It also illustrates the lengths to which one will go to set things right. I'll provide a brief synopsis of major events in the first 3 story episodes, dubbed the Oracle arc. We're not going too deep into the weeds on any specific topic though. We've already covered a number of things on this channel over the past year or so. It's only logical that we start at the beginning, the chain of events that would set everything in motion. The people who would discover photons and research how to use them for energy were dubbed the photoners. They had space travel capabilities but couldn't go very far with what they had. That all changed when they confronted the living ocean at the center of the universe. This was no ordinary planet though. This planet had birthed an intelligence powerful enough to calculate everything in the universe, the very incarnation of knowledge itself. The Photoners gave it the name Xion, who blessed them with the knowledge of converting photons into energy. This ushered in a 1,000-year period called light history, but things would go sideways after a time when the Photoners attempted to replicate Xion and failed numerous times. One of these clones would give rise to the Profound Darkness. The Photoners managed to seal it up, but this came at a heavy cost. The influence of the Profound Darkness was still within the universe and gave rise to Darkfalls and the hordes of Falspawn that would terrorize the universe. Eventually, they'd set their sights on the Oracle fleet, whose inhabitants would learn that they were sitting ducks. Eventually, they figured out that photons were the keys to victory and fast-tracked research into weaponizing them, which led to the founding of ARCS as we know it. So to commemorate this, ARCS created a new calendar called New Light History, or After Photon. AP for short. ARCS had its share of growing pains in its quest to understand how photons interacted with living organisms. The 3rd generation of ARCS would overcome all the hurdles the previous generations faced. This is where we come in, as 3rd generation ARCS. The year is AP 238. Today's our qualification exam on the planet Nefarious, and we're introduced to our partner Affin. There's been a surge in Falspawn activity recently, and we're almost eaten alive before Zeno comes on the scene. To add to this weirdness, we meet a strange woman by the name of Xion, who sets us off on our time-bending journey by giving us the Divergence Matrix. Our first time-bending task is to save a young lady who falls unconscious in the forest on Nefarious. This is where we meet Gedamult and a mysterious masked figure. We take the girl back to the ship with us. She tells us her name is Matoy. Our next task is to track down the fragments of a mysterious weapon. We discover the first piece on the tundra of Nefarious, and we're once again assailed by the masked figure. Zeno and Echo come on the scene to help us hold them off though. We then proceed to the other 2 planets to retrieve the other pieces. We bring the fragments to the legendary weaponsmith Zeeg, who agrees to repair it. The rod is stolen, but we have another problem. We're dispatched to the Ark ship Themis, which has been besieged by Falspawn, and Ulk is slain in that skirmish. We find our thieves in the ruins on Nefarious. The weapon they purloined was no ordinary weapon. It's actually the cosmogenic arm, Clarissa the White. Gedamult means to use it to unseal Darkfalls. Cassra tells us that Darkfalls wasn't slain 40 years ago, but merely sealed up. Until now. The newly freed Darkfalls takes Gedamult as its host, and we're formally introduced to Elder the Gargantuan. After a brief confrontation, Elder assumes his final form. A massive pillar of dark photons gushes out from the planet's surface. The planet-sized abomination ascends into space, accompanied by an entourage of false arms. ARC's forces would mobilize to bring down this monstrosity, but Elder disappears and reunites with his fellow collective members. A singer by the name of Kuna begins her concert tour across all the ARC ships, but she's no ordinary pop star. There have been reports of a berserk chrome dragon on the loose. The dragon's name is Hadrid, and a mysterious blue-haired assassin is on his trail. Hadrid is labeled a traitor to ARCS, and our blue-haired assassin girl is tasked with putting him down. Eventually, we put 2 and 2 together and realize that the songstress and the assassin are one and the same. Episode 1 draws to a close as Hadrid and Kuna have one final encounter on Amdiskia. Hadrid speaks his first and last words, "Sing me that song once more." A tearful Kuna is happy to oblige in his final moments. Episode 2 starts with the introduction of a man who seems particularly interested in Shion, but can't see or hear her. He introduces himself as Luther, who's in charge of the Central Research Division. In the revised timeline, this happens at the tail end of Episode 1. Episode 2 introduces us to the water planet of Wopal, where an SOS signal was sent to all ARC's operatives. It's here that we're first introduced to Doomans and Bravers. We meet up with Theodore, who seems a little strange. Losing Gulk really took its toll on him. Luther sees the fight we just had and makes Theodore an offer to become even stronger, which he accepts. We have our meeting with Shion at the usual spot, but Matoi follows us. Turns out she can see Shion too, and the three of us are connected somehow. There's someone that Sarah wants us to meet on Amdaskia. We meet Xiao, who introduces himself as Shion's younger brother. He's got a job for us. He wants us to get to the bottom of what Luther's been up to all this time. But first, he has us go back to the ruins on Nefarious where we first met Sarah and Maria to save Zeno at the time of Elder's Awakening. We encounter Darkfall's apprentice on Lilipa, and Affin notices something familiar about her. In the other timeline, this happens in Episode 1. Now it's off to the seabed on Wopal, which is effectively Luther's playground. We see Theodore again, but something's different about him this time. Xiao jumps into our auxiliary and sends us back to the Themis to save Volk. Shion bids us come to the Oracle Mothership, where all would be revealed. No sooner do we arrive, an emergency broadcast goes out. The mothership's under attack. Regius comes on a screen, outlining all our supposed crimes, then issues the absolute order, Code Abyss. The entirety of ARCS is brought to bear against us, but Kuna would blow the lid on Luther's schemes and break the order. Shion fills us in on how she met the Photoners and how this whole mess came about in the first place. We finally confront Luther at the core of the mothership. Shion's physical form dies, and Luther becomes a Darkfalls and merges with the mothership, but he's ultimately defeated and cut down by Regius. Xiao has another time-bending job for us. Everything about Matoi has been flushed down the collective memory hole, so he sends us 10 years into the past to figure out why. It's here that we learn of Matoi's origins and the fight with Apprentice. We also learn the identity of the masked figure. It's a copy of us from another timeline. We're back in the present, and Episode 2 ends with Matoi wanting to hear more of our stories. Episode 3 introduces us to the newly discovered planet of Harukotan. Matoi is now officially an ARCS operative and starts joining us on our missions. We get there and we can't understand anything the locals are saying at first, but Xiao helps us overcome that language barrier. Matoi is mistaken for what the locals call the Ash Maiden. We meet Kotoshiro, who is also looking for this Ash Maiden. The Nightfall has crossed the Eternal River with a group of Falspawn. We now know where those Falspawn readings came from, and we're formally introduced to the Gemini twins. This is also where we meet the real Ash Maiden, Sukuna Hime. Kotoshiro fills us in on Sukuna Hime's origins, as well as the river that splits the two halves of the planet. Well, it turns out Affin was right. The current apprentice is indeed his big sister Euclida. The twins seek to unseal the planet breaker Magatsu, with whom they share a number of similarities. Just like Darkfalls, Magatsu was born of negative emotions and seeks to eradicate all life. Sukuna Hime reseals Magatsu, but a fragment of it escapes. We still have Gemini to deal with. Matoi proposes we get both sides to work together, but of course neither side wants any part of this. We meet with the Night Lord personally alongside Sukuna Hime, but something's wrong here. Gemini appears and subsequently eats us. Inside Gemini's pocket dimension, we run into Luther, who fills us in on the Darkfalls Collective's real mission, reviving the profound darkness. He also fills us in on the origins of this abomination. We escape Gemini's pocket dimension thanks to Luther's help. Gemini is beaten, but the profound darkness awakens within us. Matoi uses Clarissa to absorb all the negative photons, then she ends up becoming the profound darkness. We square off against Matoi alongside Persona, who restrains her so we can deal the final blow, killing them both. It's over, right? Well, not like this. We fight Matoi, but this time Persona comes on the scene with Clarissa. Clarissa sucks the negative photons out of Matoi, subsequently turning Persona into the Profound Darkness this time. Matoi is free, but the Profound Darkness returns alongside Gemini. But we didn't outright kill it off. Persona and the Profound Darkness are now in a time loop. there is the chance it'll keep coming back. Xiao puts Ulk in charge of arcs while he tries to figure out a permanent solution, but that ordeal has taken its toll on us, and now it's time to rest and be cleansed of the corrupted photons we've taken in along the way. Well, that's the Oracle arc for you. As always, thank you so much for watching and for the continued support. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And remember, to thine own self be true. Until next time, farewell.